Hey, welcome into another evening of Tony Talks Trash about music. Tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to think about, and I've thought about this for a couple weeks ago, and I started this list, and I started to think to myself, I'm not a big concert attender. You probably know that Dino and Jay probably go to more shows than I go to. But the shows that I do go to, I enjoy, and I used to love to go to shows. And I'm thinking throughout the years, what are the live events throughout history and music history that I wish I would have been at? What are my top 10 there? What are the and it's something to ask you about. Remembering this, I'm going to tell you earlier tonight. Smash that like button, please, so we can get that going. And I appreciate anybody that would subscribe to this. This is interesting, and I expect you guys are going to have an interesting list too. Everybody has their favorite artists. Everybody has their favorite era of things that they like the best, things that they miss, legends that they've heard about, legendary shows that they've heard about. Mine I kind of broke into tours mostly. Some of them there's some exact dates, but let's get started. I guess my first honorable mention, maybe I should start with that. An honorable mention would probably be that very first Todd Rundgren Utopia show where they had Hunt and Tony Sales in it, and they had all the space stuff, and it failed a lot of times. There's that CW Post bootleg thing that's pretty good about it. But that sounds to me like it would have been interesting, in its whole way. Number 10, Miles Davis in his period that I consider to be the classic period when I'm talking about, for at least the stuff that I like. And I know he had some great, great stuff before. And I'm dating myself by saying this, I guess, or my interests are. But I'm really talking about the second great quintet. Quintet. You've got Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, Miles. I mean, that was something else. And then I would extend that on to the short period of time it had the great band with Jack DeJohnette and both Keith Jarrett and Chick Corea in the band. Man, I am really a big Keith Jarrett fan. Keith has so many records; it's really impossible to do any kind of countdown with his stuff. At least I'm not qualified to do it. I love him. I've really come on to him a whole lot lately. I've probably listened to him more in the last 10 years of my life than I ever did before. I really enjoy everything I get. I buy every record I see with his name on it that I don't have. I've got a great big stack, just ECM ones this big, Atlantic, some other ones too. I just love everything he does. I know some people get annoyed by that singing thing. It doesn't really bother me. But I love him. Him and Chick Corea together, there was some really magic on that tour for a short period of time. It's amazing Miles got him to compromise and get into the electric instrument like that. Number 9, I'm going to go with a band that really, there's no excuse. I should have tried to seek this out. I didn't know what was going on. I'm talking about the supergroup Hobo Lima. I'm talking about Alan Holdsworth, Terry Bozzio, Tony Levin, Pat Mastatello, those four. And they got together for about 9 years and terrorized the world. I've seen some of the live stuff that they've done. Some of it's amazing and some of it's kind of dull. And yes, hopefully I've heard about this Holdsworth. Let's pray this Holdsworth documentary comes. And let's hope it's honest. Let's hope some people are talking a little bit about, some of the problems that he kind of had getting motivated and his perfectionism and such. But it was on the downside of his career. But it was just great to hear him with Bozzio, especially him and Bozzio and then Levin. And it was interesting to see him off. Mastatello was pretty good to hold things together. And I think Mastatello was kind of the driver in a way of all four of them in the shows that I saw. And Terry, of course, did his thing with his humongous drum set. And then Tony with the stick and Holdsworth did his things with a lot of fading crescendos and diminished chords and patterns and things that come in slowly. These little bursts from the syntax type of things that you heard like the beginning of Sand and some things like that. Really was great, man. I wish I would have seen it. Let's get on to number 8. And I'm talking about number 8. I'm talking about, and we've had this discussion before, I think, on this channel. Is it really, is this really like, auto wreck, rubbernecking type of art or what? I'm talking about Tonight's the Night tour. You've heard some of the bootlegs from that, how the crowd was extremely irritated and how Nils was astonished at the way that Neil would just seem to relish it and just would go right into people's face about it. I find it very odd after he'd been rewarded so well with Buffalo Springfield and Heart of Gold money. He must have been, you're talking about, I guess, the time fades away and all that period. And tonight wasn't too long, removed from that. But, first, I love the Doom trilogy myself. I think that's some of his best work ever, some of the greatest songs. And so, yes, I wish I would have experienced that. I know there's a lot of people that say, well, I want to see Dylan's, when he went electric, or I want to go to Woodstock or something like that. To me, something like Neil Young's Tonight's the Night tour would be, especially one of the early shows, would have been staggering. Let me go to number 7, and I'm going to go to number 7 to a little place that I visited after the fact. But I'm talking about I would have loved to have been there from 1968 to 1973. I'm talking about the Fremont Grange Town Hall, Fremont, New Hampshire, and the Shags, the weekly dance they had at the fire hall there. I would have loved to have been there. I think I've told you the story before in my love letter to the Shags, that when I visited my friend Carl, I think the first West Virginia game under the coach, they've just rehired it. PU. I'm not into it, but I was at the time, and I went up to see Carl, and I went up to see my friend and his wife, who I'd known, who was a friend of my ex girlfriend, and that's one place I had him take me to. Well, he didn't live too far from there. He lived upside of Boston, man. It was amazing. I was there just kind of looking at it and just imagining it. Their father, walking up and down, and Austin Wiggin, was manager of the Shag group that he put on the one paper something. It's something else. And there's an account somewhere of somebody ride through the fog in New England to check it out. And it was kind of like that, when Carl and I went up there. It was like a wistful fall, the beginning of the football season. So I guess it was the end of August, the beginning of September. But up there it was still cold. It was cold as hell, I thought. But anyway, that was Boston. When he lived up in New Hampshire. And talking about Fremont, New Hampshire, guys, 1968 to 1973. Let's go to number 6. Yes, I had to include it. I'm talking about the O2 Led Zeppelin, December 10th for Ahmet Ertegun, 2007. I mean, you've heard the result of it. I have the box set over there of it. It's just, to me, phenomenal. And I wish I was there. It's way, way better. I mean, anybody who saw those, well, you saw the Live Aid, Jimmy Page at the Live Aid, and think that the music was not near as good. Things were a little bit different. I think maybe Jimmy was, in between projects or doing some stuff, and it just didn't seem like it was organized together. Then Phil Collins comes into the mix, and that just didn't make it. But with Jason, my God, it was just like it was a reborn. It's a shame that thing never took off, but I understand Robert Plant's point of it, but it doesn't make it hurt any worse that they didn't make it available, other than 1 in a million people that got to go. Yes, now in retrospect, I would have flown over to London for this for sure. And that's my number 6. Number 5. While we go legend, let's talk about the concert at Apple headquarters on the rooftop in January the 30th, 1969. The Beatles rooftop concert. Yes, you think about the Beatles, you think about that last tour, the Candlestick Park. I think about some of the greats, If I Needed Someone, and things like that. Couldn't really hear it, but you could really, the fidelity seemed to be better on the rooftop. People were listening to it wherever they were. Just have been nice to see them at that state, that close to their own independence. George, that close to All Things Must Pass. John, that close to the Plastic Ono Band record. Paul, that close to Ram. Ringo getting ready to do his thing. Buku Blues and stuff. I mean, it's just, you can just feel it, you can see it, but the maturity of it is fascinating. I dig a pony and all that up there. See him get, pseudo put off the stage, how much of that was put on, how much was not. Anyway, that would have been great for me. Number 5 might surprise some people here with the rest of these here. Number 4, there were 2 performances. There's one in 2011 and 2012 in Amsterdam. I'm talking about the Metropole Orchestra shows with Todd Rundgren, which comprised his performance there. Some of the songs you haven't heard in a long time, such as Wailing Wall, and it was an intense experience. It was intensely different. His voice was spectacular. He was singing really, really well. It was very emotional, his delivery. Um, I've seen a lot of great, great, great Todd shows, and he doesn't, he doesn't know anybody anything, but owning that and owning that DVD is, oh my God, exquisite. That's one of the things I wish I would have gone to. And at that time, I was kind of waxed and waned some. By the way, I'm going to see him day after tomorrow. Burt Bacharach. Yes, I am. So I've seen it. We're going up to Homestead. We're going to go up, so we'll be posting a video of that too. Not a video, but what am I talking about? A review of that, a podcast here about that. I've seen it. I've seen it so far, but I'm not going to judge it until I see it in person. Number 3, we're going to go way back, and some of you might not know it because I don't talk a lot about it, but I'm talking about back in Auguay, Paris, in the Chantelet Auditorium, May 29th, 1913, in the premiere of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, when they had a riot because of music causing a riot. They'd never heard rhythms like that. Rhythms like that had never been introduced really to music. The crowd, you can read all about this whole thing. I guess you maybe depending on where you were seated, you might have taken your life in your hands and people throwing chairs. I don't know what happened at the end of it, but it ended up being some major ruckus. But to be there when something so spectacular is done, it's probably one of my very favorite classical pieces. And that's really hard to say. But, you don't think of them. I don't think of them in the same way of rock and ranking and stuff. I can't do that. So to me, it's more decorative. And that's why some of the jazz artists sometimes are harder for me to hang on to than the song form. But anyway, that's my number 4. That's my number 3. I'm sorry. For my number 2, I'm talking about Royal Festival Hall, September 28th, 2004, where Brian Wilson puts to rest the demons in his head and the stigma and the magnanimous task of presenting the live Smile show. Van Dyke Park's in attendance. 9/28/2004, and there are people there from all over the world. And I'll never forget they asked one guy in the video whatever he said. Why are you there? Whatever. He goes, well, I'm going to have my life before Smile, and I'm going to have my life after Smile. Smile, to some of us, I subscribe to everything on the West Coast stuff, all of the cool surfer guys things through some of the fan club and stuff. And there was a couple guys that owned record club things that I bought damn near everything they had, every pressing of everything. And I'm got to still have a really big Beach Boys collection. I'm not going to sell it. It was one of the things I decided at some point I was going to do. Now I did sell my singles. I had singles, and some of them, I think I told you the story, got damaged on the way out to law school and all. But anyway, yeah, man, great. Great monumental thing, and you could physically see if you watch the video. I want you to take it back if you haven't seen it, or get it wherever you can. I think you probably get it for free now. But the making of Smile. Watch Brian while they're going through this stuff. Watch the physical things when he has to go to the hospital. Melinda wants him to go get something to eat. Watch him physically, the way he seizes up when some of the stuff starts to strike him. Some of the chords and some of the things that he did. You can tell it hurt him so deeply because it meant an awful lot to him. That's why when you're an artist and when you do things, and I know myself because I've had incidents and stuff in my life. When you create something, it's fragile. You got to kind of guard it and hold it out there. You're going to have people that are going to want to, for whatever reason. You've got to understand it doesn't have anything to do with you. Everything passes through you. So But it's such a beautiful thing to see that. It's one of the most healing videos, one of the best things I've ever seen. And you can physically see him. I mean, before that, he was still slightly somewhat talking out of the side of his mouth. After that, he seems like the whole thing was lifted from him. It's remarkable to see. And my number one, numero uno here, and this is today, and I'll probably add something, say, oh, I forgot tomorrow. But I would have loved to have been in the Village Vanguard when John Coltrane played there anywhere from the fall of 1961, anytime forward, to any of the incarnations of the band he had all the way throughout the end, as long as he played that. To see John Coltrane play live would have been that. Now, I have seen Miles play. I think I told you that. I saw his modern band play down at the waterfront or whatever they called it there in Washington, D.C., in the pavilion there. And he's playing Human Nature and that stuff. Ricky Wellman, drummer, and all local boy from D.C. I think was his nephew or such. But yeah, man, it was enjoyable, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same intense thing as it was. They got into it some, but there'd have been nothing like seeing Coltrane. Man, Coltrane burst wide open, and yeah, I didn't say this in here. But one of my regrets in my life is that I didn't do a Grateful Dead thing with Holdsworth and follow him around, because I could have done that. Perhaps I could have arranged to do that. And I think he was important enough an artist that if I was developed enough at the time, like if I was developed to the point to where I was really attentive to it, maybe 5 years ago, something like that, dude, I'd have been there and done it. I'd have made it happen. Every show that I possibly could have seen of his. Because I do believe he's that important, and of course Coltrane was that important, and his approach and the way that he came through with it. I know there's a free jazz stuff and all this stuff too. There's a million things, Dolphy, a million of them, man. Ornette, where does it end? Albert, I love it all, man. Anyway, but that's it, and that's my top 10. Leave your top 10 below. Remember, hit that like button, smash the hell out of that thing if you can. I love you guys. And again, by the way, anybody in town, this may get there after the word, but on the May the 10th, we're having an album release party for our new record, Welcome to Kaiser, and we're going to have it down at the Queens Point Coffee Shop. So come on down on Saturday night, May the 10th, and celebrate the opening of it, and your first chance to hear it, and first chance to get all about our great little town of Kaiser, West Virginia, which I think is damn nice and just as good as any place that there is. I love this place. It's a place where I'm from. I know it's got a lot of faults like everywhere else does. But I love the people, man. That's what it's about. It's all about people. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys later, and I'll have something else for you very soon. Thank you.